Welcome to today's Connections and Contributions event. These events are a space for givers and doers in the Just People's community to come together, and they give our supporters a chance to meet with the people that they're supporting with their grants and donations and learn more about the work that they're enabling on the ground. And we're very delighted to also welcome some new faces today and see your curiosity to learn more about these wonderful leaders. And we hope that you leave inspired today and as excited as we are about backing their wonderful work. Today, we're going to be having 5 leaders share with us over the hour. Now, all designing and delivering projects which alleviate poverty in their communities. Everyone who's speaking today has just joined forces with Just People's in 2024. For those that I haven't met, I'm Johanna DeBerg, and Christy, the other co-founder of Just People's, will be facilitating today's call. And we're going to be speaking with Florence Namaganda, Jean-Michel, Samirian Sankori, Angela Benedicto, and Grace Ongonga. Today, each of the leaders have prepared a 5-minute talk about why they do what they do and how they are impacting their communities. So each leader has presented. Christy and I will briefly share one of the leaders' current projects to give you some idea of what they can achieve in their communities with the donations and grants that they receive to support their work. So without further ado, first up we have Samirian Sankori, currently dialing in from Melbourne, Australia. Samirian is the absolute powerhouse founder of Paranai Asim. Samirian defied cultural norms to pursue an education and now empowers fellow Maasai women who live in highly patriarchal communities by providing education, healthcare, and opportunities for economic independence. Welcome, Samirian.
Thank you, Joe, and good morning, good evening, everyone. Imagine a world where women have the opportunity to thrive, build a better future for themselves and their communities. I'm a Maasai. I grew up in a small village called Isara in a big homestead with my cousins. My father happened to be lucky to have an education, and that differentiated me and my cousins. I saw my dad's younger brothers, my uncles, really beat up their wives in the evenings when they come home and find the livestock were late getting to the manyatta or homestead. I saw my cousins being married off very young, and their mothers had nothing to do about it. They were not even consulted. All they knew is the child is not going to school when school opens because they've already found a husband. They also did not have any say on to who is going to marry their children. And this is all because these women had nothing that they called their own. The men make the decision. It's a very patriarchal community. Today, I want to introduce Paranai Asim Sustainable Livelihood Initiative, which is dedicated to empowering women in Kajiado County, Kenya. Maasai women face numerous challenges, from limited access to education, as I've just mentioned, healthcare, to cultural barriers that restrict their economic participation. Many are marginalized, lacking ownership rights to land, livestock, which is their livelihood, and are often excluded from decision-making at the household level and even community level. Investing in skill development and financial inclusion for women is crucial for several reasons, and especially rural women who have no education. It enables them to become economically independent and breaking the cycle of poverty and dependency. Right now, they depend solely on their husband. It enhances their role in decision-making, leading to more inclusive and equitable societies. And it fosters community development by making them lead a more inclusive and equitable society. Also, it helps them harness the untapped potential that they have. These women, whether they are educated or not, they still have some potential in them. They have skills, but until they are given that opportunity to use those skills, we would never know. God sharing is one of the projects that Paranai Asim is very passionate about. As you see in that picture, this is the first women group that we supported with goats. We gave them 20 goats. There are 62 goats now. That's 2.5 years ago. And it's a group of 20 women living with HIV positive, and they're living positively. We have seen the change in the health of these women since they started this program. So today, I want to tell you why we believe in this program. Goats are resilient animals that thrive in harsh environment, making them well suited to the Maasai way of life. They already possess the knowledge of livestock rearing. We are pastoralists, we are nomads. So we live with these animals. So we really don't have to teach them how to take care of these livestock. All we need to do is just give them that little push and they're good to go. Goats also provide valuable resources such as milk, very healthy, meat, which can be sold or consumed, generating income and improving food security. They also empower women by providing them with tangible assets that they can own and manage independently. Right now, they take care of the goats and the sheep and the cows that belong to their husband, but they do not have a right to sell them. They cannot make any decision to what happens to the resources that come from the sale of these livestock, but it's their responsibility to take care of them. Right now, we've seen the first group that we gave them, and the men do not interfere with that. When we started that project, we had a meeting with men, and they were happy and said we will not interfere with them. And the women now have their own herd. So imagine waking up, you're taking care of livestock that you also have some that you can call your own. So as someone who believes in the transformative power of grassroots initiatives, the power of owning livestock for Maasai community is like having shares in a bank, for instance, or having rental apartments. This is their rental apartments and this is their shares. So the journey of Maasai women resonates deeply with me, witnessing the resilience and determination to create better future for themselves and their families inspire me to support them wholeheartedly. Thank you very much.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Samarian. I love listening to you speak and I love looking at your beautiful, vibrant photos. So thank you so much. Just to give some context about how much supporting Samarian can help her achieve in the world, with little over 2,000 Australian dollars, Samarian can provide a group of 20 women with their own healthy goats so they can establish their own herd as a tangible pathway towards economic empowerment. Christy, I think we've got time for maybe one question.
Steve, I love that you're ready.
I was just wondering, Samaria, that was a fantastic work you're doing there. That's amazing. How do the men respond to what you're doing?
Good question, Steve. As I mentioned, yes, we are a very patriarchal community, but what we did is when we started working there, we had a meeting with men and introduced the organization and our vision. They are very happy. They're actually very supportive, but that's because we engaged them from the beginning. Also, poverty levels are so high now that they are also desperate. Every little help that comes, they will not question. And like a few years ago, they used to say, women should never own anything. Right now, women are the ones holding homes because the droughts have swept all their animals. Women are the ones sustaining those homesteads. So they are very supportive right now. And we've also made sure that we engage them and make sure that we massage their egos.
Nice.
Love it.
Best way to do it.
It's the global solution. Okay, thank you so much, Marianne. All right, guys. Next up, we have Angela Benedicto. So having survived abusive conditions that many domestic workers in Tanzania face, Angela founded anti-trafficking and domestic worker support charity Wati Sawa and is now a passionate advocate for domestic workers' rights and human trafficking survivors across Tanzania and international borders. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Joe. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. And I just wanted to start by saying that what am I going to share is normal in my community. A person telling you that, who do you think you are? Because I'm a domestic worker, therefore I have no choice to my body. I was a domestic worker when I was at 16 years old, and I experienced various abuse and exploitation for my working. And it was not easy to move the job or to left the job, but I thank some people locally who helped me to left the job. And after leaving the job, I decided to establish the organization. And as I said, I faced various experiences, including sexual violence from my employer. This is how domestic workers are treated in my community. I remained undervalued, lacking of social and legal protection, and are not seen, are not recognized, despite the important work that they are doing in the community. And as I said, this is the reason why I decided to break the chain and establish this organization to raise the awareness, the capacity built to domestic workers, and to prove the community that even domestic worker can be a leader, can be a lawyer, can be anybody in the community. One of the reasons why these domestic workers are trafficked into domestic servitude and other sexual violence, it's because of the high poverty. So these children are engaged in domestic work, and the parents or family members are the one who facilitating the process. It's normal in my community to find a child from 10 years to 12 years working as domestic worker. And the parents are the one who facilitating that process. The parent is the one who receiving the money on behalf of the child. And the parents are forcing them to leave the school so that they can go to work as domestic workers. And another thing which is very bad is happening in my community. So we have this human trafficking involving crime syndicate. It's a well-organized crime whereby young women are recruited in Tanzania and are trafficked in other countries, for instance, Malaysia, etc., for sex exploitation. And when you know, the reason is still the poverty. So what we do, we work together with the government to raise awareness. We work together with the community, but also we work together with the parents to educate them so that their children can stay at the school and not in domestic work. But also, what we do, we just build the capacity building to just survivors whom we have rescued. So we have shelters where we accommodate them after we rescuing them from hazardous work or from human trafficking. So when they are at the shelter, we provide different training skills so that they can be able to live free from their life, but also just to have any other skills and they not depend on domestic work. Because we have seen also the one whom we rescue, if you are not providing skills, it's very easy to be trafficked again. Another thing which I wanted to say, that what is our, so we promote decent work for domestic workers, therefore work with local government leaders to ensure that domestic workers are protected, but also work with the parents, as I said, so that children are not trafficked into domestic work or into human trafficking. But also we combat human trafficking inside and outside of the country. We combat child labor in my community so that children can stay in school and not in domestic work.
Brilliant.
Thank you
so much. Thank you so much for sharing, Angela. And I think you're such a wonderful role model for all that you've enjoyed it now. The fact that you're running this huge organization, reaching so many women and children who are vulnerable. So love your work. To give a bit of context, Angela is planning a campaign, and with $5,500 Australian dollars will allow Angela to run a comprehensive public awareness campaign via mass communication channels about the serious risks associated with international work offers as a way of preventing hundreds or possibly even thousands of vulnerable Tanzanian girls and young women from enduring the highly traumatic experience of being trafficked. Thank you so much, Angela. So now we'd like to welcome Florence. Florence is a neuropediatric therapist and physiotherapist who only discovered the existence of people with disabilities when she started medical school. She has since founded Makisa Foundation, where her team has provided comprehensive healthcare and emotional support to over 4,000 kids living with disabilities and their families, and is reshaping Ugandan society to be inclusive for people with disabilities. Florence, welcome.
Thank you, Joe. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here today. I just want to share a story with you. Just over 18 years ago, I set up to start an organization that would care for children with disability. And because I had no money to rent a place, I decided to start with a home-based care program where I could also continue my work as a physiotherapist in the afternoon. One of the children I started with is called Isaiah. Isaiah was just over a year old. And I vividly remember my first visit, because when I went to their home, it was a different sort of home, very, very sad, very dark. And mother wasn't talking to me actually, so I decided to get with the child first. And after my therapy session with Isaiah, mother came in and pointed to another room and said, actually, there's another child. And this was a very dark room. And I asked them to turn on the light. And when they did, there was a girl in there, about 7 years old, the most severe disability that I've ever seen. And this girl had just beaten her lip because she was bleeding. So I asked them to remove her from the room. Get her out of the dark room into the living room. And of all these 9 times, she had delivered the baby properly. 6 of these children had died. She had 2 children with severe disabilities and one girl who was the firstborn who was okay. So on my third visit to this home again, this mother told me another thing. She said she was pregnant again. I didn't know what to say. But I asked her, do you know why the other children had died? And she said she didn't know any medical reason, but she knew that she had been bewitched, she was cursed, and nobody was talking to her. Her family, their families were not even visiting them, and the neighbors were scared of their home. So I then determined that this mother would have a healthy child, but I didn't know how. So I went on to do some research and I found out about a condition called Russell's incompatibility, where couples who have different Russell's factors can have challenges delivering or having healthy babies. But I thought maybe it's not the case because his mother had delivered all her children in big hospitals in Uganda. Anyway, I went on to do the test and we found out that she was indeed Russell's negative and her husband was Russell's positive. And this was very sad because this lady had lost 6 children, had 2 children with severe disability, labeled a bewitched woman, and yet it was because the medical people had not done their role to help her. So anyway, by the time she had her baby, we had gotten some funding and now we had a center where she could come with her 2 children and meet with other moms. And in the process, she got empowered, she became a seamstress, and now she works with us as a seamstress in our workshop. But Isaiah's story is one of many, many stories in Uganda where children get disabilities from preventable causes. And even the ones who have disabilities with other causes that could not have been prevented do not have enough care to be able to live up the lives to their full potential. And this is our goal as Mukika Foundation for over 4,000 children to ensure that these children can live and thrive in families that are resourceful, that are happy, that know the reason why their children are like that and are not blaming themselves. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much for sharing, Florence. It's so powerful when you share even just the story of one child in their family and the effect that your incredible work can have, and to think that you've reached over 4,000 children. It's wonderful and so inspiring, the depth of that impact. So to give everyone a flavour of the kind of impact that Florence can make with your donations, it costs a little over $1,000 to provide a year of comprehensive support for one child living with disabilities every month, medication, nutritional support, and really importantly, a warm and safe space to connect with other people. Thank you so much, Florence. Is there any questions for Florence?
Regina?
Just a quick one. Thank you so much. It was very, very touching story you shared with us. What's the biggest barrier that you face, do you think, Florence, in terms of achieving the goals you've set out? Is it attitudes in the community? Is it government? Is it general funding?
I think when we started out, I would have said it's attitude of the families themselves. But right now, there's a lot more awareness from the families of like wants to get the help. But unfortunately, it's not there. There are no services for these children apart from a few places like our own.
Thank you.
And the other thing about Florence's work before we move on is that we are releasing a podcast this afternoon, which is an interview that we've just done with Florence that really delves into all the cultural barriers and things that are facing kids living with disabilities. But the podcast with Florence is it's wonderful. You get to hear really in depth about all of that. So we'll definitely share that link with the follow-up information. Thank you, Florence. Okay, next we are going to travel down to Kenya to see Grace Ongonga, who is the founder of Asembo Skills for Hope, where her team provides comprehensive support for women to break the cycle of poverty in their families and communities. With gratitude for the opportunities that she had to obtain an education and avoid an early marriage, Grace is now on a mission to offer life-changing opportunities to young women in her Kenyan community, ensuring they can shape their own futures too. Welcome, Grace.
Thank you very much for that very warm welcome. Let me start by telling you a bit about myself.
I'm from Kenya. I grew up in Asiambo. That is a very small fishing town on the shores of Lake Victoria. I always knew I wanted to get out of that small town and make something of myself. So after I finished my high school, I went to college, got a bachelor's in education, and moved to Rwanda, where I taught for many years. But I kept in touch with my friends and classmates back in Asembo. While I was able to achieve my goals and become economically independent, they were not able to. They stayed in the same small houses. They struggled to afford basic needs like food and to take care of their children. Many of them got married young and have very little control over their lives. I know you might wonder, what is the difference between me and them? One might think education, or maybe Grace worked so hard. The truth is, there is one key difference. Their parents could not afford school fees, and so they were forced to drop out, and they never had a chance to even try to reach their full potential. You see, education in Kenya is not free like in many countries. And I think this is where generational cycle of poverty begins. Girls are forced to drop out of school and they have no options. They don't have the education, they don't have the skill to get a job. They don't have strong, independent role models or female role models in their lives. And so they can only envision one thing, being a wife and being a mother. Without their own income and being fully dependent on their husbands, it becomes really hard to pay the bills. And so they're forced to do what their parents did, take their children out of school, and the cycle continues. So that is why I started Asiambo Skills for Hope. We break that cycle. We provide these girls who are now very young women an opportunity for them to gain skills, to earn an income, an opportunity to be empowered and to be strong role models for their own daughters. Through our main program, our Skills Academy, every year we enroll 30 women on a full scholarship to our Skills Academy. They learn to become successful tailors and fashion designers, and we are hoping to add more skills to provide more agency. We also teach them entrepreneurship skills so that they have the business management skills to have successful ones. And together, we also have life skills to help them deal with gender-based violence, which is a problem in my community. After graduation, we continue to provide routine business coaching and monitoring to help check our graduates' progress, providing microloans and helping them to get what they need to have successful businesses. With all of this, we do recognize that the path to empowerment includes more than just economic obstacles. And that is why well-being is a key part of our program. We provide family planning, access, and knowledge. We help them with positive communication skills to curb down gender-based violence. We build confidence and counseling. Throughout, we have been always data-driven. We measure our impact, and over the years, we have had 100% graduation rates, with income increasing from $0 to $68 within 1 year of graduating. With a 50% reduction in gender-based violence, we know we've not met our target yet, but it's a walking step towards reducing gender-based violence in the community. And 78% of the women are actively using family planning. Those great smiles that you see there in their faces is a continuation of a great positive story that we continue to drive. I am inviting you to help me invest in these women as we continue to break generational cycle of poverty by empowering the women of Asembo. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Grace. Your photos, again, are so powerful and really bring to life how holistic the work that you're doing is. Love hearing about all the different facets of how you work with these women to economically empower them, but also address lots of the other barriers that they face. In terms of what Grace is planning next, with just under 8,000 Australian dollars, Grace can provide a business mentorship and microloans program for 60 graduates from Asembo Skills for Hope. And that's to ensure that they can continue their journey after their 10 months program within the academy. So to ensure that they continue their journey to develop robust business management skills and have the ability to confidently expand their enterprises. So we have time for 1 or 2 very quick questions. Does anyone want to ask anything of Grace? Regina.
I'm always going to be curious. Very cool work. Must be very special that it's your community. And my question is, one of the stats you gave us was that 70% of the women are now using family planning. So how does the training they receive in their 10-month course equip them in ways other than sewing skills? So clearly it's introducing them to more options that give them more control and choice in their lives. Family planning is one of those, I'm presuming. It's not just a coincidence.
Yeah, thank you very much for that good question. We pride ourselves in saying that we provide holistic support to the women. So apart from the fashion design that we are teaching them, we also have social groups where they come in together every week to meet, they save money, they loan each other money, and it's also a space for them to share the different challenges that they're going through. We are also launching Hope and Hearts initiative, where we are trying to help the graduates become a link between them and the market. So we are getting contracts with schools, and then they are coming in to have a continuous, and if I can say, a more solid employment for them. And that way they're able to get their income. Other than that, most of them deal with a lot of gender-based violence. So we are helping them have that safe space where we can help intermediate conversations between them and their husbands and the community members, and also empowering the community on the importance of positive communication skills. So we are trying to help these women not only become successful business people, but confident women, proud women, empowered women, better parents to their children and to the community. But also we are changing the initiatives that the fact that I did not complete my elementary education doesn't mean that I am written off. I can still rewrite my story and be a better person. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Grace. And again, we've just recorded a podcast episode with Grace, so that will probably be coming out, I think, in a couple of months' time. We'll share that as well so that you can hear more about Grace's wonderful upbringing, her life, her story, and the wonderful work she's doing in December. Okay, last but absolutely not least, we have Jean-Michel. Jean-Michel grew up in the wake of the 1994 genocide in Rwanda. He embarked on a mission to teach people the art of powerful debate to address crucial issues without resorting to conflict. Jean-Michel is the co-founder of iDebate and a dedicated advocate for peace. Welcome, Jean-Michel.
Thank you, Joe, and thank you, everyone. First of all, I'd like to say it is a pleasure to be here. It is wonderful to actually listen to all the other fellows and the wonderful work that you're doing. I'd like first to bring all of you to the country of 1,000 hills, the country of Rwanda. For many of you, Rwanda is a country that experienced genocide about 30 years ago. But for us, the people from Rwanda, the generation that was born right after the genocide, or the generation that was born in the aftermath of the genocide, the weight of history is something that we have to deal with on a daily basis. And about 15 years ago, a question popped in my mind that I'm sure is the same question that many people in our generation ask themselves. How do we prevent the past from reoccurring? But then also, how do we craft a path for the future so that whatever happened in Rwanda doesn't happen again? And then that gave birth to iDebate Rwanda. iDebate is a debate program that teaches students the art of public discourse. In our program, we accept the fact that conflict is inherent to human beings, but then that violence is a choice. Within our generation, what we're hoping to do is to teach young people how to disagree constructively without resorting to violence. Now, how do we do that? We do it through a 3-tier approach. Number one is we work in student training. So we train students who are in secondary schools, that is high schools. We train them from the basics of communication to complex argumentation and research. Through a 32 weeks curriculum that we have developed, the students are able to go from learning how to communicate to later on learning how to disagree constructively on public policy issues. Secondly, we have student competitions. And in those student competitions, we bring together schools from all parts of Rwanda. Currently, we're working with 150 schools and more than 5,000 students on a monthly basis that meet up for a competition. And the competitions are always geared towards the sustainable development goals. And finally, we have a teachers program. In our teachers program, we teach teachers on how to create a more democratic classroom. How can we have teachers allow for conflicts to happen in their classroom and for them to actually view themselves not as a sole proprietor of knowledge, but rather as facilitators for knowledge to be created. At iDebate, what we are doing, in my hope, is that we are both a peace building program and an education program. We're a peace building program because we're teaching young people tolerance, the importance of living with people who disagree with you. And just because people disagree with you doesn't mean that you're their enemy. And then secondly, we are also an education program where we are providing crucial skills to our young people for the 21st century. Skills such as critical thinking, problem solving, and most of all, communication. What I hope is that if we do our job well, then that our generation would have given a better gift to the next generation, because we would have given them a culture where people disagree constructively, but they never resort to violence. And also part of our program is we have also seen that there are crucial skills that some of our students need. And that is why we have introduced financial literacy classes, and we have also introduced entrepreneurship classes so that our students are really well shaped for the future and that they are shaped to be able to become agents of change wherever they are. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jean-Michel. I haven't seen most of those photos before. That epic. That's so good. You can literally feel how empowered those kids are and what they're learning. It was just magic. Thank you so much for sharing. This does sound like I'm trying to plug our podcast again, but we've got a really, really good episode with Jean-Michel. You can feel the power of the work that Jean-Michel does with the kids that he works with, but also just listening to his general wisdom for the world, for everyday people, relationships with families. You'll come out of it a better human. So we'll send that episode on as well. And to give some context about what Jean-Michel is able to do with support, with a little under 4,000 Australian dollars, Jean-Michel and his team can run a year-long program for a Rwandan high school where they teach students critical thinking skills and how to debate tough topics without leading to conflict. And then they work together to actually implement projects within their community to tackle local poverty-related issues. So, questions for Jean-Michel. Garner some of that wisdom.
When you go into the schools, Jean-Michel, how do you go with the students, getting them engaged? I would imagine they'd be quite shy at first, but then looking at some of your pictures, they look very engaged in the ones that you showed us. Besides teaching them the content, how do you go about getting them engaged and working them down the path to have these critical debates?
Actually, I would say that teenagers are very fascinating. So I think that teenagers I always say I love working with teenagers for the same reason everybody else hates working with teenagers. They have opinions. They think they know it all. And, they think if the world can just think like them, the world will be in such a good place. Actually, I've never found any issue with the motivation aspect. So many of them feel like this is something that they want to do. And of course, one of the things that we do is we do spend a lot of time on getting them, I think at least the first 4 to 6 weeks are really just getting them comfortable standing up in front of people and doing things that are actually hard. But to tell you something, Steve, I've been doing classes for corporations in public speaking, and I find it less enjoyable because teenagers are more likely to take risks and take that chance, and they're not scared to look bad, right? As much as older people are scared to look bad. So that motivation part is easy. And once they found that it's something that is good to do, you do it. And then also it's about making smart cool. So part of what we have done is we make it that the kids who are on the debate team are the kids that everyone wants to emulate. So, they're the ones who have very nice pictures. We try to get them some jerseys so that you create that culture of, well, actually, I want to be those kids. And we have actually a lot of kids who come, not because they want the activity, but they want what is associated with that. And I think that's part of the work that we've done of making it a cool thing, and that having smart friends and doing smart things is actually a good thing.
Awesome.
So good, Jean-Michel. So good.
But are there any conflicts happening with their parents because they're going home and sometimes questioning or arguing or giving another perspective in cultures in which that isn't always considered appropriate for children, to people who are seen as children but who think they're adults, to express their opinions openly?
It's such an interesting question. I've
Such
been
a
loving
good
these
question.
questions.
Oh, no, definitely. I'll give you an example. I had a parent who came once to me, and then he said yesterday his daughter had come to him, and because he was in government, so she was reading a policy that they had put in place, and then she disagreed, completely with everything. And then the parent told me that they were conflicted because on one side, he doesn't like the fact that the daughter tells him that he is wrong and gives him 4 really well articulated reasons. But then he says, on one side, her arguments are really well articulated. I don't like her disagreeing with me, but I want her to disagree with anyone else. So yes, parents, of course, the conflict is going to be there, definitely.
You've got to send them off to Sumerian to get some lessons on massaging the egos.
That's true. That's definitely true.
Using some tact along the way. But I really just love, because I think it's just such a great life skill for any young person, and will hopefully help them out in their future personal relationships, as well as in the workplace and other things, but especially for not having to accept, for example, if they have government officials or others who are maybe doing exploitative things or trying to implement policies that aren't going to be in people's interests, they know ways of approaching those things.
Exactly. No, definitely.
Thank you so much for joining. I hope that you will leave today feeling positive and inspired by all the amazing work that's going along in the world. And a huge thank you for all the questions that have really enabled us to gain a richer perspective on the work and challenges that each leader is facing. If you're not currently supporting one of these leaders, but you'd like to, you can reach out to me or Christy, joe@justpeoples.org or Christy@justpeoples.org, and we'll set up a call to go further into the needs of each leader and what they can achieve with your support. And thank you to everybody for joining, particularly to Grace, Florence, Jean-Michel, Angela, and Sumerian, for battling the East African internet outage and preparing such beautiful and inspiring presentations to share with us. So thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, everyone.